All right, everyone, good afternoon. I've got 1300, the top of the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us. This is our third day of forums here at AirVenture 2025. I see a couple familiar faces in the audience, so we haven't bored everyone too much yet. Some people have come back for seconds. If you joined us this morning, you saw my colleague Dan had a presentation on ForeFlight fundamentals. The idea behind that, if you missed it or if you were here just as a refresher, that's kind of like a ForeFlight 101. So for newer or maybe inexperienced users of ForeFlight, how to get into the app, how to do the most basic stuff, which is flight planning, flight filing, and some pre-flight briefing stuff. You also got to witness, if you're here this morning and paying attention, me spill an entire cup of coffee on my lap, so that was really fun for everyone. It seems to be okay now, but I was really worried in the humidity, which is also messing with my hair. Hopefully everything will be, we'll get through it together. We'll all be okay. Anyway, so this session right now, what I'm going to be doing is ForeFlight power users, whereas our basics, ForeFlight fundamentals is kind of ForeFlight 101. This is kind of ForeFlight 102. We're going to presuppose some of the information that you already know. So I'm going to jump right in to effectively where Dan left off. So if you were here this morning, I'm going to pick up where Dan left off. I'm going to go into some more advanced uses of the application to include some tips and tricks and things like that. A couple housekeeping notes I want to mention at the top here. I already mentioned the QR codes. If you just joined us, there are QR codes to my left, your right, my right, your left. Those will direct you to a Google form where you can apply for Wings credits for these sessions. The way those work functionally, it's a Google form that goes to myself and my colleague Thomas when we get back from AirVenture into our office next week. We'll open up those emails, audit those, send that information off to the FAA. Usually within 2 or 3 weeks, you'll get your Wings credits. The only thing I have to make sure you understand is use the email that is registered with the FAA. The other thing I want to mention, because I've been doing these for quite some time and I've observed how people engage with these forums. You are more than welcome to record me, take pictures, take audio recordings, whatever you like. What I would suggest, however, is we will be recording this and rebroadcasting it. For those who got here several minutes early, you probably saw me messing around with a little microphone. I'm wearing a second microphone on my lapel that is recording my voice. It is not recording this. So the recordings will have better audio than we have here. I know the acoustics in here aren't great. So if you would like to revisit this forum, revisit this seminar, we'll post it in about a week. It also won't literally be a camera recording of this. I'm recording on my laptop, so it's a much clearer visual than what you're seeing right now. The audio is also clearer because it's my voice, not coming from the speakers. So again, you're more than welcome to record, take notes, however you would like to engage, but it's not necessary. We will be posting this within a week or so, and you'll have access to that. If you would like to revisit it, watch it on YouTube, play it back at whatever speed you like, use closed captionings, all of that stuff we enjoy doing when watching videos back. So without further ado, say again?
How do we find it?
No, I have a slide coming up. Good question. The question was, how do you find it? I'll explain it and then I'll show you a slide that walks through it. The quickest way to do it is just foreflight.com/videos or youtube.com/foreflight. It will all be posted there. So when you go there, there's a link to past webinars, upcoming webinars, video library. It's pretty easy to navigate, but it will be on our website. So my name is Jeremy, along with Dan and my colleague Thomas, who will probably be joining us about halfway through. We are the customer education team at ForeFlight. Our role, our job is to do things like this. So if you've been to any of the webinars we have online, you've probably heard my voice before or Dan's voice before. This is part of our job. We train general aviation users, that's most of you. We train business aviation users, military aviation users on the best way to use the application, and this is part of the training we do. If you haven't yet been to our booth, this is a map about how to get there. It's probably easier for me just to explain this to you. If you walk out that way, make a left turn, keep walking past the control tower, keep the control tower over your back right shoulder. You'll see a big blue building that says Boeing on it in big white letters. We're in there. The building says Boeing. About half of the floor space is us, though. So just walk in the front door and you'll find us. Alternatively, for AirVenture, our GIS team creates a special airport diagram for Whitman Regional that has all of the AirVenture highlights on the plate. So if you wanted to open up your iPad or iPhone, open up ForeFlight, open up the airport diagram for Whitman Regional, you can actually just use that to navigate your way around the grounds here. So if you haven't noticed that yet, it just updated just before AirVenture. You can use that to navigate walking around if that's helpful to you. So we have up here our upcoming show schedule on the left-hand side of the screen. This is our third day. Like I said earlier, Dan did ForeFlight Fundamentals. This is ForeFlight Power Users. We'll repeat these two on Friday. So if you'll be here through Friday, just know that in this forum, we're doing the exact same sessions again. There won't really be any differences, so you don't feel obligated to attend all of them. Tomorrow, on Thursday, we are doing some different ones. We're going to start at 10 a.m. with what's new in ForeFlight Mobile, and that will cover some features, basically anything that's come out in the last calendar year, plus some sneak peeks of things coming out in the rest of 2025. The biggest feature there that we'll be previewing here is our dynamic procedures feature. We sent an email to, I think, every user last Saturday, just kind of previewing it, saying, hey, this is coming out, check this out. If you're an instrument-rated pilot and you fly or file IFR and you'd like to see that new feature in action, we can demo it live for you in the booth. So over in the booth, we have some iPads set up with features that aren't out to you guys yet, so we can load that up and let you see what it looks like. The only thing we can't do is show you what it looks like at altitude, but we can kind of sort of talk you through what that is. If you attend the What's New tomorrow, I do have a video of a sim flight using dynamic procedures. You can see how it looks in action, how that feature looks. We'll follow up What's New tomorrow at 1300, same pavilion, with optimizing your iPad. So this is a course we did for the first time at Sun and Fun, right? We did this for the first time at Sun and Fun based on feedback. One of the things I'd like to mention, we'll put up some emails and things like that in a second. If you guys have any feedback for us about the forum content, things you'd like to see, things you don't think are necessary, please let us know. This is our job. You're not gonna hurt our feelings or anything. So we had some feedback one year about how users just wanted to know, how do they know if they have the right iPad? How do they know if their iPad is configured correctly? Stuff that we kind of took for granted, but it was a legitimately good question. So we put together a course about how to make sure you've purchased the best iPad for the way you fly and that you've optimized your iPad settings, all of that stuff for the way you fly. It's especially helpful if you're running or affiliated with something like a flight school or you're sharing aircraft and sharing iPads to standardize how that's going to look from user to user. Like I said, Friday, we're repeating the two we're doing today, and then on Saturday, we have a session called Teaching and Learning. Do we have any CFIs here? Okay, quite a few. Anybody who owns or is affiliated with a flight school? Okay, any student pilots? Okay, for any of those folks, everyone's welcome, but for any of those folks, they're the target audience for Teaching and Learning. If you're here on Saturday, the basic idea behind that is how do you teach people how to fly with ForeFlight? That's the idea behind that. So if you are a CFI, if you're thinking of becoming a CFI, if you're affiliated with a flight school, you're a student pilot, there's going to be a lot of benefits from that. And then we'll repeat optimizing your iPad again on Saturday at 1300. Oh, I'm sorry. On the left-hand side of the screen is the show specials. If you've been at OSH, well, actually the last 2 years, it's the same specials from the last 2 years. There's quite a few people who renew their subscription at OSH, and then they'll just get the 10% discount every time. So it's 20% discount for upgrading to our two highest tiers, 10% for renewing if you're already a subscriber at our highest tier. There's also some Jeppesen Nav data discounts that are displayed up here. And if anyone's interested in buying a Sentry Plus, it's the same 10% discount we had at last OSH, also the same one we had at Sun and Fun. The only difference this year is we don't have those in our booth. We're leaving all the retail to Sporties. It's the same exact discount though. So if you go over to Sporties, they'll have this for you. Same exact discount we're offering there. So this is something, if you were in Dan's session this morning or the one I did yesterday, or the two I did yesterday, I already kind of talked about this. I just want to briefly, I don't want to repeat too much what Dan said, but effectively, I mentioned our job is to do training sessions like this. I mentioned we do it with the business aviation market, military aviation market, the general aviation market, which is most of you guys, is effectively this. It's this kind of environment, which is fine. It is a little one-sided though. It's basically me talking to you for an hour or so, and we might have time for questions at the end. So what we did is we have a product we offer for our military pilots where we have a classroom at our office, and military units around the United States, around the world, send pilots to us, and we do a 3-day intensive training with them. And the idea is they go back to their units, the pilots, the crews, the dispatchers, navigators, whoever it is, they go back to your units as subject matter experts. We decided this might be something of interest to our general aviation audience, so this is our first effort at this. We're not 100% certain it's going to be received the way we hope, so this is kind of a trial balloon, for lack of better words. The first one we're doing is October 15th through 17th. Based on its success, we may begin to offer more of these. The QR code behind me will bring you to a registration page. With that said, I saw a couple people put their phones up already on this. There is a non-zero chance this is sold out. So because we're at the show, we're not actively managing the account. We do have a limited number of seats. If it is sold out, I do sincerely apologize if you wanted to attend and just found out about this. I'd encourage you to register anyway. So when I mentioned this is the first one of these we're doing, if we do more, it's partially based on how many people expressed interest. So because we have a classroom setting, it is not nearly as big as this. I mentioned earlier, it's designed to be less us talking to you and more of an interactive environment where we're really digging deep into how you fly and everything like that. So that's what this event is. If you are you can register without paying. There's a possibility this is already sold out. If you register, you'll still give us your email address, and if and when we decide this is something we'd like to replicate at a different time of year in 2026, maybe do 2 a year or something like that, we'll have your email and you'll be on the list first for people we contact. I'll leave this up for a minute or so. These are the same QR codes to my left, your right, my right, your left. This is just the Wings credit link. And again, when you're filling this out, you only have to do this once. For any of the ForeFlight seminars that you attend that you'd like to get Wings credit for, just make sure you use your FAA affiliated email. If you use an email that's different from that, we have no idea what email is on file with the FAA. So if you want to make sure you get your Wings credits, please just make sure you take care of that. And if you have any technical difficulties with that, hit one of us up afterwards and we'd be more than happy to walk you through that. So there was the earlier question about how do you find these recordings? This is one place you can go, foreflight.com/videos. This is where we post all of our training videos, all of our education videos. I'll refer to a webinar that I did about 2 months ago at some point during this presentation, specifically about weight and balance. If you've never been to our videos tab, you can visit it, and there's some ways to navigate across the top that are upcoming, past, and you can sort by subject. If you prefer to use YouTube, you can just go to our ForeFlight channel on YouTube. I believe that's just youtube.com/ForeFlight, and you'll also find all of our videos. So I'm going to jump into my content here. And Dan mentioned this earlier, so if you were here for that, you're going to hear this repeated as well. So one of the things, again, we take feedback from folks when we do these seminars, when we do these forums. And one of the feedbacks, that's not correct grammar. One of the things we heard from people was that folks were having some difficulty keeping up. And they were like, hey, you're going too fast. I have difficulty keeping up. The structure of this makes it so I kind of have to go at a certain pace to get done in an hour and 15 minutes. That said, no one has to follow along. Like I said, you're welcome to just sit back, listen, think about questions you may have, and then watch the recording later. You're welcome to just zone out and go to sleep. Again, it's not going to hurt my feelings or anything. If you would like to follow along in some capacity, what we've done is we did some deep linking with URLs, and we've created a QR code. If you scan that QR code with the device, with a device that has ForeFlight on it, this will load the route I'm going to talk about directly into ForeFlight. It will override anything you have in your flight plan drawer. So if you're planning a flight home today and you're in the middle of that, probably don't do this because you'll lose some of that information. If you're fine with that, just go ahead and scan this. And again, this should load into your flight plan drawer the flight I'm going to talk about. So this is something that yesterday I had a session on custom content, and I talked about ways you could share information. What's really neat about using QR codes like this in ForeFlight to share things like flight plans is this doesn't need an internet connection. So if you're planning a flight with a bunch of other pilots, I don't know, some sort of trip somewhere, maybe sightseeing or something, and you've done all the flight planning work and you want to give it to Carl and give it to Dave, if you create a QR code and they scan it, it will automatically load it and no internet is required. And this is because we're taking advantage of a way in which the iOS basically reads URLs to execute something in the app. All right, so I'll make sure back real quick. So the idea behind here, I said what Dan talked about in fundamentals was kind of sort of ForeFlight 101. The idea behind this is kind of sort of ForeFlight 102. I'm going to pick up where Dan left off. He had talked about planning a VFR cross-country from scratch. I'm going to assume I've already done a lot of that planning, and the route I'm planning now is the first leg of a multi-leg IFR cross-country flight. So I'm going to pick up in the middle of this process rather than walking through step 1 through step 99. I'm going to kind of start at like step 50, so kind of sort of halfway through. So here I am looking at my flights tab. I already have a flight planned. I already have a flight planned. In the morning session, Dan went through how you would build this on the Maps tab. He kind of sort of ended with sending this over to the Flights tab, and that's where we can do our filing and all of that stuff. I'm starting here. My flight is effectively done. I have everything I need to file, to fly, to brief this flight plan. I'm just going to walk through some highlights to make sure you understand what information I've already planned here. One of the things I want to mention, most people here, we can do this by show of hands, who does their primary flight planning on the Maps tab? Okay, that's the majority. So every time I've done a session like this, the majority of folks do their planning on the Maps tab. I actually got feedback from a colleague once who told me that wasn't true. It was the Flights tab, and every single time I ask, I kind of send him a message like, really? I thought you said that wasn't true. So I'm doing this in the Flights tab. If you've never used the Flights tab for this, just know that it's almost the identical functionality for the Maps tab. If you're a more textual person than a visual person, you may prefer the Flights tab. All of this functionality is available on the web as well. So you can see here I've planned my ETD. There is my ETD. I've also planned my departure and destination airport pair. For this example, I'm leaving from Georgetown Municipal in north central Texas over to Topeka, Kansas. I've also selected an aircraft. When I go through this, some of these drop downs you'll see, I have lots of different aircraft in my profile. Some are, because we do lots of training for lots of different people, we have lots of different profiles. Most of you may just have a handful. When you're doing any flight planning, make sure you have the correct aircraft selected. It seems obvious, but we have had, on more than one occasion, people come to the booth and tell us there's problems with performance calculations or things like that, and they're just not selecting the correct aircraft. So I know that's not an advanced tip, but it is something to bear in mind. I have also selected a performance profile. For this example, these are all the default performance profiles for this aircraft, but I can change this. The reason I wanted to mention all of that and just highlight all that information is once you have all of that prepared, once you have all of that planned, we will get a performance summary across the top of the screen. So we can see we have our distance between our two airports, our ETE, our ETA, our estimated flight burn, and an average of the winds across my route, in this case 15 knot tailwind. The reason I want to highlight this is as I make changes to anything that will affect my aircraft's performance, that performance summary will change. In this example, those changes are actually going to be really slight. In some cases, it's a minute at a time, a gallon of fuel at a time, but I just want to highlight that. As you make changes here, this performance summary is dynamic. It will constantly adjust to the changes you make. So if you are making a mistake in flight planning, just be aware that it will be reflected here. So what I want to do now is I've done my very basic flight planning, ETD, departure destination airport pair, aircraft selection, and my cruise performance profile. ForeFlight allows me the option to plan for alternates. I can plan for 2 alternate airports and a takeoff alternate. I'm going to walk through that workflow here. Oh, one thing I want to caveat too. If you're not flight planning this same way, that's perfectly fine. However the app works for you, use it that way. Hopefully by the end of this presentation, I'll talk through some things that maybe you were unaware of or would like to try to use in your flight planning, but don't feel like this is the way to do flight planning. So I'll go ahead and tap on my alternate, and ForeFlight has a built-in alternate advisor, and we will suggest to you what we think you should use for the alternates. The short version of how we do this is within 100 nautical miles of your destination airport and a runway that meets your aircraft's minimum runway requirements. That's the short version. There's a little more logic going on, but for all intents and purposes, that's pretty much what you need to know. So for the alternates here that are presented, we can see they are listed in order from closest to farthest to my destination airport. I can also see the additional time en route to get to my alternate if I'm using the alternate instead of the destination, and the additional fuel burn. So we can see my examples here. I have Topeka Regional, Lawrence Regional, and Kansas City International. I can see at a glance whether or not those are towered or untowered. I can also see, let me move this magnifier over. I can also see at a glance what the longest runway is and what kind of approaches are available. You can ignore our advice, by the way. You can use you can plan an alternate that we don't suggest to you, and you can do that just by typing in an airport code here, or you can use our suggestions. I'm going to continue my planning by using one of the suggestions. I'm going to tap on Lima Whiskey Charlie here. You can see that this should add 6 minutes to my time en route and 2 gallons to my estimated fuel burn. Yes, sir. Say that again, I'm sorry. So the question was, the alternate advisor take what you're talking about for the fuel burn and the ETE? I don't believe so, unless I'm mistaken. For the minimums for that, no, it does not. It's going to be just minimum runway length and then distance to destination. That other level of decision making would be on you to check the weather forecast. Yes, and this is also, I'll talk about how the weather at a destination airport works too. And I would just say, bear in mind that when you're looking at it for planning purpose, when you're looking at like the METAR for your destination, that's current. Right, so you should be prepared to check for an updated weather regardless. So we will not scrub their METAR to see if this is going to be VFR or IFR there. Does that answer your question? It has to look at the tab, not the METAR. Sure, but we're not scrubbing that data. You have to do that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select the second option listed here. Nothing has happened to my route yet. I just want to highlight on my little inset map, I can see my other recommended alternates, and I can see how this one would affect my route. I'm fine with that. I'll say, okay, this is what it is I would like to use. I am going to go ahead and select Lima Whiskey Charlie. I have the option to add a route to my alternate. I have the option to change my cruise profile to my alternate or change the altitude at my alternate. I could also just leave this as direct and leave all the defaults there. In my example here, I'm not going to make any changes. I'm just going to leave this as direct, and this will plan. So in terms of the estimated fuel burn, the additional time, it will be from the missed approach point at my destination to my alternate. So that's how that number is being calculated. I'll go ahead and add this as an alternate. And again, it's really, really slight, but my performance summary did change. In this case, my fuel burn increased by 1 gallon as I've added in that alternate, and as ForeFlight is doing those performance calculations to make them as accurate as possible. I'm going to take a moment. Again, my flight is basically already planned. I've picked up halfway through the process. I want to just review my available performance profiles for my aircraft. I'll go ahead and tap on performance profiles. Would probably scroll down a little bit to see this more clearly, but these are the performance profiles available for my aircraft. If you look at the bottom right-hand side of the screen, you'll notice that that little highlight has changed. If you are a premium subscriber, you have access to some, not all, some pre-built performance profiles that ForeFlight has already built using manufacturer's information. This aircraft has a pre-built performance profile for it, so that's what I'm using. I'm using the manufacturer information. ForeFlight's already done all the math for me. I can go in and select these individual performance profiles. If you're not a premium customer, or you're using an aircraft that we haven't yet built the profile for, you can build your own. You can build your own climb, cruise, and descent profiles. If you're operating an aircraft that you think we should have built a profile for, if you email us at team@foreflight.com and just let us know what you're flying, let us know you would like a performance profile built for it, we may or may not be able to accommodate you. It's possible somebody's already working on it and maybe they'll tell you like, oh, it's almost done. It's also possible we've never been asked that before and it's something we have to triage and decide whether or not we're going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to change my performance profile. My default was high-speed cruise. I'm going to change this to normal cruise. And the reason I'm changing it is just to show you that this is dynamic. So as accurate as you can make your flight planning, the performance summary will be, let me rephrase that. The performance summary will be more accurate, the more information, the more accuracy, the more details you put into your flight plan. So by changing the performance profile into the cruise profile I plan on using, adding an alternate, making it realistically represent how I'm flying, my performance summary will more realistically represent how my plane will perform. On the bottom, I just wanted to point this out. We have our inset map here. The inset map is slightly different than the Maps tab on ForeFlight. It has a little less information. It's basically used for a quick overview of your route plan. So in this case, I can see there's my route. You can see the radar is being displayed. Just at a glance, if I'm flight planning this, it looks more or less okay across my route. When I do more in-depth weather briefing, more in-depth flight planning, I'll look at this in more depth to get some more clarity on that. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down just to look at some more options I have available in my flight plan here. And a couple of things I want to highlight is I have my route in here. So I've picked up halfway through the process. I've already planned a route. You can see I have my route string here. If you're doing this from scratch and putting point A to point B, that will always default to direct. In this case, I just went ahead and typed in a route string. So a series of en route waypoints in between my departure and my destination. You could do this a number of ways. You could literally just type it in on the iPad. If you have routes that exist in other software or in a CSV file or something, you can paste those into here. This is just an editable text field. You can make any changes you like to this. What I would like to do is I want to see if ForeFlight has a route that they are recommending for me and get a preview of how different routes between the same exact airport pairs compare to one another. So I'll tap on my route advisor, that's the green little routes text box there. And you can see that for this particular departure destination airport pair, at the time I accessed the route advisor, ForeFlight had two different routes that they are suggesting to me for two different reasons. At certain times, and depending on your planned route, you might see dozens of routes here. For right now, I'm just looking at two. Even though there's only two here, I think this is a pretty good example of the information that is portrayed here that I have access to. If we look at these, I can see there's a pretty substantial difference in the ETE and fuel burn for these two routes. So depending on what I need out of my operation, maybe I'm price sensitive about gas, or maybe I'm really in a hurry, whatever it is, I can really quickly get an idea which of these is going to match how I want to fly for today or tomorrow, or whenever it is I'm planning. So I can see the top one there is 2.5 hours and burns 64 gallons of fuel. My bottom route is about, 31 minutes longer, but saves me almost 20 gallons of fuel. So again, it's going to be variable based on your operation, which you prefer. But whatever one you prefer, you can just go ahead and tap on that. And what we're going to see happen is ForeFlight will override the route I was planning with this route. So the way the route advisor will work is depending on your airport pair. You may see ATC preferred routing. Right now we're seeing recommended routing. We're seeing airway routing. You may see recently cleared routes. The recommended route is typically suggested by ForeFlight to save the most time and fuel. That will appear at the top there. If you're a premium subscriber, for everyone else, you'll see those other types of route recommendations. Tapping on it will just highlight that route on the map. It's almost identical to what I had planned, at least at this scale. If I'd like to use this, I'll just hit select route. The route string has been replaced with the route that ForeFlight recommended. And let's say I'm going to continue my process. This route makes sense to me. The fuel burn was within whatever my imaginary limits are. So I'm okay with this. I'm going to continue to scroll down here and look at some other advanced options available to me. So there's a couple different ways this will appear to you based on your subscription level. If you are a premium subscriber, which I am, because I work for ForeFlight, and it'd be weird if I wasn't, because I'm a premium subscriber, you'll notice I have this payload tab area here where I can just directly edit people in cargo from this screen. If you are not a premium subscriber, you won't see that. And what this does, the benefit of this, is this allows you to adjust weight and balance on a flight-by-flight basis on this screen, and it will save that weight and balance for this flight. So I could plan a flight tomorrow with completely different payload, and I could just do that here. You still have access, even if you're not a premium subscriber, to the weight and balance tab. The weight and balance tab will still allow you to do your weight and balance. It just won't be saved flight to flight. One of the other things I want to point out here, that QR code that's on the left-hand side of the screen. I mentioned earlier, all of our webinars, all of our seminars are recorded and disseminated back to all you guys. That's a webinar I did on weight and balance, I want to say 2 months ago, but it was probably 6 months ago, and my sense of time is broken. But it's a webinar I did on weight and balance. It's an hour and a half, 2 hours long, just about how to create a weight and balance profile, how to use weight and balance tools in ForeFlight to plan for a flight, make sure you're within limits, make sure nothing is dodgy in terms of weight and balance. The way that webinar works, the first half of it, I used pre-built ForeFlight weight and balance profiles and made edits to match my aircraft. The second half of it, I walked through how to use a POH to make a weight and balance profile from scratch, and then use that scratch-made weight and balance profile to plan a flight. The reason I'm showing you the QR code is that webinar took about 2 hours to do. It's more time than we have here. It also has some very specific interactions with go to this section of your POH, look for this value, enter in this value for CG, et cetera, et cetera. So it actually works really, really well watching it at home on YouTube or whatever, and you can pause, rewind, change the playback speed. If you want to direct yourself directly to that, that is the QR code for that webinar. It'll either bring you to YouTube or foreflight.com/videos. I don't remember exactly where it redirects. I'll leave this up for another 10 seconds. I see some phones up. Okay, so now I'm going to start doing my payload analysis, my payload calculations for this flight. Again, I'm a premium subscriber, so I can do that directly in flights. You'll notice that this has been preloaded with one person with a weight of 200 pounds. That average is a system default. My ForeFlight account is set up where any adult is entered in as an average of 200 pounds. Obviously, I have to have a pilot, so this will always show at least one person. We can change those defaults and settings if you want. I'm not going to go through how to change the defaults, but it's not super difficult to do. The one thing I will allude to is I'm sure people can figure it out. I don't weigh 200 pounds, so that is not accurately representing my current weight. So I would probably want to make changes to that, but this is just a default value here. If I want to start making changes, a couple different ways I can do this. You can just change the number of people you're flying with. So if I'm flying with myself, I'll just leave it as 1. If I'm flying with a couple other people, I'll change the people. So right now it says persons on board 1. I'm just going to go ahead and replace that. I'm going to add 3 other people. So let's say I'm going to go flying with a total of 4 people. I've also added 100 pounds of cargo. So my imaginary scenario is myself, 3 friends, every person has a 25-pound bag. Yeah, that math works out. Every person has a 25-pound bag, and this goes into my cargo hold. And this is step 1 of my weight and balance planning. An error has appeared, so I should probably pause a moment and be like, wait a minute, something's up. I want to make sure I'm safe to fly. You're welcome to ignore any of these errors. It's probably best practices to see what at least we're telling you is wrong before you ignore it, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and tap on my errors button or errors banner across the top of my screen, and you can see there's my error. Max ramp weight exceeded by 31 pounds. That's a pretty minor error, just the 31 pounds. The fact of the matter is, if I just enter in my actual weight instead of 200 pounds, if I put in 164, the error will be resolved. So I can do all the math, I can go through that, or maybe I just know as a pilot, like, oh, that number is not right. I'm comfortable ignoring it. If you do want to do your due diligence, though, and make sure your weight balance is as correct as possible, what I would recommend is tapping into this weight and balance tab here from our flights tab, and we can see I'm out of balance. So based on the information I've inputted, I'm out of limit and I'm exceeding my max ramp weight. One of the things I want to highlight here, because it's a relatively new feature that not every user has seen before, and if you're looking at my screen and you're like, what is that? This is our graphical weight and balance. If you are a premium subscriber, this is already available to you. If you are a premium subscriber and have never seen this before, you have to enable it. It's enabled on the web. So if you're a premium subscriber and you would like to use this graphical weight and balance feature, it's not turned on by default, visit your account on plan.foreflight.com, navigate to the aircraft tab, open up the aircraft for which you would like to see this, go to the weight and balance profile. On the right-hand side, you'll see a button that says graphical weight and balance. Turn that on. Once that gets turned on, you'll see another button that says enable for mobile. Turn that on, and then you'll see, whoops. Oh, why didn't that go back? All right, I'm sorry, I gotta jump ahead. Just jump back several slides for some reason. So once you do that graphical weight and balance, turn that on web, you'll be able to have access to that. It's a very neat tool. It probably makes more practical sense if you're operating aircraft with more than 4 or 6 seats, but it's really helpful just to see how is my aircraft provisioned, where are folks sitting at, where is the cargo at, etc. So right now, again, this is exactly as I entered it into my flights tab. I have all 4 of my passengers at my default weight of 200, and I have 100 pounds of cargo in the nose compartment. It looks like, I guess I'm not too far forward. It looks like this is just a weight issue. So I can go in and start editing these weights. You can scroll down and do that in these fields here. So if you notice this says pilot, there's 200 pounds. I can edit that there. If I want to use my graphical weight and balance, I can just tap on individual seats and make those changes. You'll tap on that seat, pop-up keypad will appear. One of the things that is helpful if you are using ForeFlight for weight and balance planning, and if you're flying with the same group of people all the time, is you can save weights. So you don't have to keep entering 187 pounds or whatever every single time you fly with Joe or whatever. You can save that weight so that when you are planning this flight, you just tap on their name and ForeFlight will remember that weight. So behind me, you can see I have 3 saved weights. I have Ryan, Susie, and Jeremy. So Ryan is a friend, Susie is my spouse, Jeremy is me. These are our saved weights. Anytime I plan, rather than adjusting from 200 to 175 or whatever, I can just tap on Ryan if he's sitting in the right seat. I can tap on Susie if she's flying with us too, and that weight will replace the weights that are there. That's all I did here. You can see I've now adjusted my weights for 158, 125, 175, 165. On the right-hand side, I am back within my limits. I am no longer exceeding my max ramp weight, so I'm probably safe to take off. Another helpful feature here, if I go back to my, So going back to my flight plan, let me go real quick back here. If you wanted to, if you tap on that summary button, you can create a PDF load manifest that includes all these weight and balance details. So if you are operating a flight school or a flight club or something like that, and you, as part of SOP, as part of your operations, you want to make sure every pilot does the weight and balance, you can make something, you require them just to tap on the summary tab and email that PDF to an ops email or a generic shared account or something like that, just to double check that people are doing this level of planning prior to departure. Obviously, you don't have to do any of that, but it is a feature available to you. That's what the summary tab does. If I navigate back to my flight plan on here, I'm just going to take a quick look at my fuel policy. By default, when planning in ForeFlight, the fuel policy will always be minimum fuel required. We can make changes to all of this as needed. Any field in blue there can be edited. So you can see, yes, sir. So the question is weight and balance profile about, I didn't hear the aircraft type, but about a specific aircraft? Okay, so the short answer is we could do it. You can ask us, request we do it. I don't know, I don't work for that team. I don't know what their triage is. You could also build your own. If you would like to know how to do that, that webinar walks through that workflow. Alternatively, if you contact us and say, hey, this is the aircraft I fly, can you please build it? My answer to you is a coin flip on whether or not the answer is yes or no. I don't work for that team. I can't verify how far behind they are in their current workflows. So there's all my fuel information. All these fields are adjustable. I'm going to leave everything as is and just go ahead and scroll down, just highlighting some other features here on my flights tab. I'm imagining that this first leg is also a fuel stop. So at the very beginning, I said this is the first leg of a multi-leg IFR trip. If I did want to start planning ahead for a fuel stop, I have some destination services listed here. If I tap on FBO, I should be able to see the FBO information for my destination airport. If anyone here operates an FBO at a smaller field that you know is not in ForeFlight, please let us know. There's been not a lot of occasions, but a handful of occasions where at these shows, someone tells us, I operate XYZ fuel at this field, it's not in ForeFlight. And the fact of the matter is we just didn't know it existed, and we get with the team and they can add it. So if you are someone who's affiliated with an FBO and you know it's not accurately represented in ForeFlight, please tell us, and we'll do our best to get that information included. But in this case, I can see, yes, sir. So the question was how often we update that information. The short answer is the FBO has to contact us. We don't have like an intern calling every single FBO to make sure they're still there and still managed by the same folks. Say again? Oh, I take that back. We call every 100 days. I'm a liar. The fuel prices is a different database. That's a whole separate complication that we should probably get into after the fact. After this, if you're curious about how this, that's a much more complex database because it updates frequently and there's some cases where FBOs don't want to tell us what their fuel prices are. So for the FBO question, I lied earlier. Thomas corrected me. It's every 100 days we check that. So I just want to highlight here, we can see where it's reported, what our fuel prices are from this fuel provider. I can also see their phone number as well as Unicom frequency for this one. I'll go ahead and tap on that, and all I've done is I've added this to my flight effectively, so I can see, oh, there's a breeze coming from this side. I'm gonna move over here. So I can see that on this example. I have some additional functionality here for my destination under FBO. If I'm on my iPhone, I can tap on the phone button and just call them directly. I can check information, I can send them an email, I can get directions to that FBO as well if I'm meeting someone there and I want to say, hey, I'll pick you up at Top Fuel Service, and they're like, I don't know where that is. You can tap on directions and get some information about that. So I want to talk about the pack feature here. Dan talked about this quite a bit in his ForeFlight fundamentals. This works the exact same way for flight planning here from the flights tab as it does from the maps tab. The difference is we don't tell you to pack for the flight. The way pack works is all of you are familiar with setting up your account, setting up your downloads and region settings. What the pack function does is ForeFlight looks at the flight you are planning, checks it against the data that you've already downloaded to your device, and sees if there's a disconnect. So the way this works is we've drawn this corridor here around our route. The geography of that corridor is 25 nautical miles left, right of center line, 50 nautical miles around each airport included in the route. That includes any alternates. Then we will say, is there data from within this corridor or intersected by this corridor that the user does not have on his or her device? If the answer is yes, there's some data they haven't downloaded, that's what is downloaded when you pack for this flight. For practical purposes, you might not need to know any of that. What I would recommend is do this as close as possible to departure. If you're operating in an area you've never flown before and haven't ever downloaded anything before, I would say do this 3 hours prior to departure and then do it again as close to departure as possible. That way you get the most current information on your device. You can see this does include weathers, NOTAMs, TFRs, and these will be available offline or online for your use. So once you pack, I'm just looking here at my flights tab. Before filing, before departing, before all of that, I want to look at some more pre-flight stuff. And all I'm doing, again, I picked up halfway through my flight plan. I'm just really finishing the details on this. This has taken me 47 minutes so far to explain. If you were doing this, this would take you 6 minutes to do. So it takes much longer to explain and describe than it does to actually do. For those of you who are newer to ForeFlight, one thing I want to just tell you, you're not going to break the app. If you just want to see what stuff does, just tap. You're not going to break anything. The only thing I would recommend is don't file unless you're going to fly that flight. Even if you do, you can cancel it. It's not going to be the end of the world. But you're not going to break the app. So if you ever wonder what something does, just tap on the button. So I want to do a pre-flight weather briefing here. I can do that by tapping on my briefing button. Every single time I tap on that, if there's new information available, ForeFlight will try to retrieve a new weather briefing. Once this is retrieved, my weather briefing is here displayed. Every single weather product we create for you, or display to you rather, will have a timestamp showing the currency of that information. I did a seminar on weather products in ForeFlight, talked quite a bit about how this works, how the briefing works, how it can be used, other things you can do. For now, I just want to highlight, you can see that you brief this flight, the timestamp you brief the flight, the currency of the data, the currency is now. Refresh button off to the left allows you to update this as needed. I'll just scroll down and quickly just highlight some things that are included in the briefing package. We have an ICAO briefing document. Oh, I mentioned this in my weather seminar, but I didn't mention it just now. Most of you will actually see this in a slightly different format. What you're looking at right now is a PDF format. Most of you probably have an HTML format that has a navigable menu at left. The information is basically the same. The difference is how the data is presented. Because I'm on a business account, I can only view PDFs. That's why this looks like that's why this might look slightly different. I'm gonna just keep scrolling down, highlight some stuff. Again, each individual weather product, regardless of what I'm looking at, I'm gonna repeat this, I think, 6 times over the next 6 slides. Each one has a timestamp to let you know how current or not current the information is you're looking at. The timestamp varies slightly in its positioning, but I can see when this was generated and the source of this information. I'll continue to scroll down. Each one of these will have a timestamp and a source presented. Yes, sir? So the question was, do we have a record that you access the briefing, correct? Yeah, so we can, this data, we have that information, this one right here. So if anything were to happen and you had to prove that you briefed a flight, we have that you opened this briefing at that time. Now, this is February 12, 1539. If I briefed this flight and then flew it 3 weeks later and never rebriefed it, that could be a problem. But yeah, we do check, we do generate this timestamp anytime you open up a briefing. Thank you for the question. So I'm going to scroll down again. I can see my timestamp and source for any of the imagery it is I'm displaying here. I'll continue again. Some other stuff that's included. In this example, I have my overflight report is displayed. This is not flying through a ton of complex airspace. So this is pretty simplistic overflight report. If I was flying in Europe, this would be substantially different. I have METARs and TAFs for overflown airports. I have any SIGMETs that are found along my briefing. I have relevant NOTAMs displayed here. One thing I want to call out. Yes, sir. So all I did, the question is how did I get here on the flight plan? I just tapped on briefing. Yours may look slightly different because you're on a different type of account. Okay, so like I said, yours may look slightly different. The information is the same, it's just a different presentation because I'm on a business account and our business users wanted this to only be PDFs for their pilots. Anything that's a safety related abbreviation, I want to highlight here, we call that out in red text so we can see what's unserviceable here, just to do our best to make sure you have all the information you need to brief this flight completely. I can do the same exact thing for a navlog by tapping on the navlog button on the upper left. Just like with the briefing, there's some formatting differences here. So if it does not look exactly the same on your end, there are some formatting differences. Generally speaking, you guys will have access to 2 different briefing types. You should have access to a standard briefing and a basic, standard navlog and basic navlog. Some of you may have options for a third navlog type, which is international. Right now, this is my basic navlog type. This is meant to mirror what a lot of people learn to fly with. Dan mentioned it's like if you printed it out, it would fit very neatly on a kneeboard and kind of sort of mirrors those navlogs you may have learned to fly with as a student pilot. But all of the information we need on our navlog is displayed here. Again, the format may be slightly different. I'm just going to scroll down. I can see the individual points. I can see things like top of climb. I can see my individual leg distances, individual leg fuel burn estimates. All of that information is displayed. I've returned back to my flights tab. That navlog is shareable and printable. I do VFR flying, so I do print my navlog, so I just have a backup copy printed out. You can do it pretty easily. It's just a PDF, so you can share it with anyone you like as well. I'm going to do some pre-flight planning. I'm going to continue some pre-flight planning in just a moment, but I'm going to assume that this flight I can probably file this. I'm ready to file this flight plan. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. No, so the question was about, I mentioned a discrepancy in how PAC compares your data. It's not to your current conditions per se. I'll describe this in a way that's probably overly simplistic. I fly in Texas, okay? If I plan a flight in Oregon, I don't have any of the information downloaded for Oregon because I've never told ForeFlight I want to fly in Oregon. So ForeFlight will compare the data I have on my device, which is aeronautical nav data, airport diagrams, all that for Texas, then identify you're not flying in Texas, you need more information and prompt me to download for that geographic region. It will always update for weather. So even if I fly in Texas, I'll be prompted to download the most current weather, but the additional information is going to be based on your download and region settings. So the discrepancy would most likely just be an updated weather information in NOTAMs. So I would bet, we'd have to walk through an example, I would bet the actual pack size is small because what we're checking is just updated METAR data or updated TAF data and then asking you to download that. If you're switching between like VFR and IFR, but never downloaded IFR charts, that would be another discrepancy that you might notice. But if you're always flying in the same region, it's mostly going to be updated weather and NOTAMs and TFRs and things like that. So I'm ready to file this flight. If you've never done electronic filing on ForeFlight, it's very, very simple. Like I said earlier, not going to break the app. Feel free to tap on anything, but I'd probably recommend against filing. You can still do it though. I did file this flight. I just never flew it. I just canceled it. No one called me. I didn't get arrested or anything. So again, within reason, I guess, mess around on the app. So I'm going to go ahead and go on proceed to file. I'll see a summary of all the information I will be communicating to ATC when this is filed. Any field here that's in blue can be edited, so if I need to make any last minute changes, I can do that. I'm going to leave everything as is. It's all fine, tail number correct, aircraft's correct, et cetera, et cetera. I'll tap in file. I'll get one last pop-up saying, are you sure? Are you sure you want to file? In this case, I was sure, so I went ahead and hit file. You'll see a progress window as the flight plan is being processed, as it's being sent off to ATC. Once it's done, you'll notice a slight change in the UI. My file button was replaced by a cancel or amend button. Cancel does exactly what it sounds like. You hit cancel, the flight plan is canceled. You should receive an acknowledgement message that it was canceled. Amend allows you to make changes and refile the flight plan. Again, if it's accepted by ATC, you'll receive an acknowledgement of the amendment. If you were filing a VFR flight plan, you'd see additional options to activate or deactivate. Because this was IFR, I do not see those additional options. You'll also receive an email notification upon receipt and acknowledgement from ATC. I went ahead and canceled this. That's why it reverted back to proceed to file, because I didn't want to get in trouble. But once I'm finished, again, I've planned my flight. I filed this flight. I'm like, yeah, this is pretty good. I'm ready to go. I'm pretty confident. I personally want to do some last minute situational awareness planning, and I'm going to do some of that on my Maps tab. I'm going to send this flight over to my Maps tab. I do that by tapping on this icon up here. This is going to send this over to my Maps tab, and now I'm at the view that I usually, honestly, I use when I flight plan is here on the Maps tab. One technical thing I want to point out, if I make changes to my route here, they do not automatically adjust what I filed with ATC. So just be aware of that. If you're making changes here and you're going to fly those changes, you may want to refile an amendment with ATC. But I have my route is displayed here in my flight plan drawer. A couple things I just want to highlight. Again, I'm doing some additional situational awareness planning prior to departure. Here's my flight plan. I have all my information in here. There's my performance summary displayed across the bottom. In the Maps tab, just like in the Flights tab, if I make changes, this will affect my performance summary. I'd like to go ahead and look at some of the tools available in my profile view. Your profile view is just a cross-section of your route. So looking at the map, that's the top-down, like God's eye view of your route. The profile view is a cross-section. You can, just like on the map, zoom in, zoom out, highlight certain legs, highlight certain specifics. This probably wasn't the best route to show because that part of the country doesn't have a lot of terrain. But across the bottom, we will call out terrain and obstacles. And if you look at the very end of my route, it looks like I'm actually going to be pretty close to something. That's what the red is there. I don't honestly know if it's a terrain. It's probably an obstacle. But I'm pretty close to some sort of obstacle or terrain near to the end of my route. We can also get an idea of airspace we'll be traveling through, over, under. To get an idea if we do want to reroute anything, combine this with the map view to really get that whole 3D picture of how it is we'll be flying. So what I want to do is, this is a neat little feature here, and this is a video that I'll play a couple times because it's going to go a little quickly. I'm going to press and hold into my profile view, and that action, that interaction on my profile view will be mirrored on my maps view. So the video is going to start here in just a second. Hopefully, there we go. I'll play this a couple times, it goes very quickly. I pressed and held in the profile view to the right of the waypoint that was labeled Lukey, and then I slid my finger along the profile view, and on the map, I saw where I was pressing and holding to get an idea, because in my mind, what I wanted to do was see what was going on there, where it looked like I might be interacting with some terrain. So I'm going to replay that video again really quick. And again, I'm pressing and holding just to the right of that waypoint. And then I'm going to slide my finger along. You'll see the green dot move, and on the map, you can see where that is. It is color-coded, and that color will change as I get near hazardous. This is something that is for our Essential and Premium subscribers, but it's color-coded, and it will change as I get near hazardous terrain or obstacles. Again, just some neat features. Whether or not it applies to how you fly, your mileage may vary there. So I'm going to continue just some interactions here in my profile view. The contrast on this screen isn't great, but it looks like I may be intersecting with that airspace there. I can't quite tell. I'd like some more information about it, so I'm just going to go ahead and tap on that airspace. It will be highlighted here on my map. So that airspace, this is the Eureka High MOA. There it is. There it is on my map. If I'm looking top down, it looks like I'm flying right through the center of that MOA, but it does have some altitude components to it. My profile view looks like I might be just above it, but I can see that it's 6,000 to 17,999 feet. This is at 25,000 feet, but it looks like I might actually be descending through there. So I'm just increasing my situational awareness, making sure I have all the information I need to fly safely, have everything I need to be prepared. I can tap on that airspace and I can get additional information as needed. I can see the active hours of this MOA and determine whether or not I need to reroute myself around there. So some additional information layers I just want to preview. I'm going to continue to look at my profile view, and then I'm going to look at some map layers. In the upper right-hand corner, I have the ability to change how this is displayed. Right now, I'm looking at airspace. Right now I'm looking at airspace here. I can tap on that pull down. You can see my other options. You probably won't have access to these global options because you don't have those regions loaded. But you can see I have icing, turbulence, reported turbulence, clouds, headwind, tailwind, estimated ground speed. Again, this is all just building up that situational awareness. What I want to highlight here, and you would use whatever it is you need for your flight, I'm going to highlight these two layers at the bottom because these are relatively new. Headwind and tailwind, I'll tap on that. In my profile view, we can see my headwind and tailwind components are highlighted. So I can see pretty quickly, am I operating at the most optimal flight level for my fuel burn and my ETE? Would I benefit from changing flight levels? And obviously I'd have to maybe refile with ATC if I'm flying VFR, seeing if those changes are legal. This is giving me the estimated headwind tailwind component. If you look below, there's a button that says estimated ground speed. This is the same data. In this example though, we've just already done the math for you. So at those different flight levels, that's what, based on the aircraft you've told us you're flying, based on your performance profile, based on your weight, based on weather forecast, at those flight levels, that's the estimated ground speed we think you'll do. So again, just situational awareness to plan efficiently and effectively for your flight. I'm going to toggle on my reported turbulence layer. Reported turbulence is also something that's relatively new. It's available for our Essential and Premium subscribers if you have a registered Sentry device. If you don't have a registered Sentry device and would like access to this layer, it's an add-on you can just add to your account. But if you have a Sentry and register it, it's free. And what the reported turbulence layer does, you can see these little dots on here. Those are not forecasted turbulence. That is literal reported turbulence. So if you tap on that dot, it will give you the information of when and where turbulence happened, what type of aircraft reported it, and the severity of that turbulence. This is a really neat feature for flight planning, and if you've never seen this and you'd like to see a demo of it, we'd be happy to do that in the booth. So I'm going to navigate back to my flight plan drawer, back to my maps tab. I just want to start overlaying some additional information. Any layer I'd like to view, I can do that by just overlaying my aeronautical map layer. My map layer selector. Right now I'm just showing my aeronautical layer. I'm going to switch over to a Jeppesen chart here. So I'm going to show my Jeppesen IFR. Maybe this is what I'm using for planning. My account is linked to Jeppesen, so I have access to that. I'm also going to overlay some weather on here. I'm going to toggle on my radar, my lowest tilt. The radar layers allow you to view 55 minutes of historical radar data. You can hit play, get an idea of what the radar picture looks like. If you came to our booth first thing this morning, we had every iPad just playing radar on loop because there's a lot of stuff happening. You're going to notice as I go through this, as I overlay different weather layers, it looks pretty clear for my planned route, so it's actually not going to interrupt my planning today. So I'm going to quickly go through different layers. Radar looks pretty good. Satellite view, this looks pretty good. The satellite layer is updated every 30 minutes. You can display it in grayscale or color infrared to show temperature. Each one of our products will have a timestamp in the top right-hand corner, so I'm going to continue. This is my turbulence layer. This is forecast, not reported turbulence. This will show in the continental United States, southern Canada, northern Mexico. This forecast is run hourly, extends up to 18 hours. On the right-hand side of some of these layers, you'll notice I have an altitude slider, so I can use that as part of my flight planning to see how conditions differ at different flight levels. I'm going to continue on. This is my reported turbulence. I showed this in the profile view. Again, each one of these dots represents an instance of actual factual reported turbulence. We pull the data from the accelerometer in our Century Pluses. That's how we know it happened. This isn't a pilot calling up and telling us they experienced turbulence. This is us interrogating the Century Plus to see if they actually did experience turbulence. Timestamp on each of these layers. Here I am looking at clouds. So the cloud layer, this is showing our this is the forecast percentage of cloud coverage. This is run every hour and extends 18 hours in the future. So again, all I'm doing is doing some pre-flight briefing, increasing my situational awareness, and I keep calling attention to the fact that we have timestamps on each one of those. We can do the same information for NOTAMs and TFRs. I would, just as best practices, the TFR layer does have to be can be toggled on and off. It's probably smart just to leave it on all the time. There may be a use case for turning it off, but it's probably wise just to leave it on. Again, just like with my radar, just like with my clouds, just like with my turbulence, it looks like my route is fine. If I wanted more information about any of these NOTAMs or TFRs, I could just tap on them and see what that information is. So this one was fairly close to my route actually, but you can look at the relevant altitudes. This is not going to be a factor in my flight planning today. I'm going to continue on. I'm going to turn on my flight category. This is sourced from, it's an internet source layer based on METAR. Actually, this is ADS-B also, but this is just based on our METARs. I can quickly see along my route, what does it look like? How do the conditions look like? Is there anything I need to take into consideration? So this is something, it's a very neat trick that I didn't go over when I went over this yesterday. Thomas recommended we add this because of feedback we've gotten based on this trick. So we've done training with military users who have flown to Austin, spent hundreds of dollars, stayed in hotels and joined us and stuff. And when we talk about this, they tell us that this is worth the entire trip for them because the amount of headache it saves. And this is the multiple selection feature. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'll explain this here. If you tap on the settings tab while viewing the map, then scroll down in the settings to multiple selections and toggle that on. I made a video of what this is going to look like. What this does is this gives you the ability to toggle layers on and off without reopening the selector. So if you want to look at multiple layers at once, and you should see, hopefully we can see it on this video, you're going to see me turn different layers on. There's radar, I forget, I honestly don't remember, I did this morning. So I turned on my radar layer, I turned on traffic, I forget what else I turned on, but I don't have to keep reopening it. So this saves a significant amount of time. If you've never noticed this settings before, you're welcome. It'll save you a lot of time, and most people are big fans of this and prefer this over the default. So I'm going to go through, let's see, I got about 8 minutes left. I may jump ahead for some of this stuff, because some of this stuff Dan kind of already covered. All right, so one of the last, I'm going to jump ahead. I did a custom waypoint thing in there, but Dan already did that during his presentation. Custom waypoints, if you needed to use it for planning, you can just tap and hold anywhere on the map, tap more, and you can save a custom waypoint that can be used for planning. What I'd like to do is I want to just preview some airport information for my destination airport. So I've just zoomed in onto Philip Billard Municipal in Topeka. That's my destination. I'll go ahead and tap on that. That opens up this screen on the right-hand side. So from here, I can preview ASOS, I can preview Unicom, tower, ground, whatever other information I need. I can also access and preview procedures, runway information, weather, that's going to be the METAR, TAF, model output statistics, daily forecast, all of that. A really neat feature, I know Dan highlighted this earlier as well, but it is really neat if you have access to it as a premium subscriber. If you are flying into an airport that you are unfamiliar with, and you want to at least roughly familiarize yourself with the airspace around that airport, that's what our 3D preview tab does. You can tap on the individual runways and get an idea of what a 1 mile final on a 3-degree glide slope would look like for that airport. You can also toggle back and forth between day view and night view, and you'll even get a preview of what the runway lighting looks like. So every time I'm flying into an airport I'm unfamiliar with, I always take time just to preview this, just get an idea of what this looks like. So I have in my head at least some sort of sight picture of what to expect. We can do the same thing with procedures. We can preview any procedures we would like to do. If I'm planning an instrument approach into a field, from my flight plan drawer, I have my procedure advisor here. Once I open that up, I can see what's available. In this case, it looks like I have 11 approaches into Topeka. I'll go ahead and tap on those. I'll see everything that is available to me. I'll select the approach I would like to use. The winds are calm here. If the winds were not calm, we would tell you which runways had the most ideal winds to use. Right now they're calm, so for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to use ILS runway 13. The plate will load on my inset map. I can select my transition fix. I can go ahead and add this to my route. If there are any equipment outages and I'm a premium subscriber, I can actually just enter that information straight on this page. ForeFlight will do all the adjustments to my minimums as needed. You can see the minimum is now presented here in magenta. I can go ahead and add this to my route. If I'm an essential or premium subscriber, this georeference plate is displayed on my map. This is the big change we're bringing for dynamic procedures. We have additional functionality around this that we can show you. Again, we can demo it over in the booth, or if you come to What's New tomorrow. If I have an approach loaded in and I tap on that approach, you can see I have all these options where I can change it, I can activate it, activate vectors to final. I'm just going to go ahead and activate this approach as I come closer to my destination. You can see my route drawer has been cleared out. It's now a direct to from my position into all of my instrument fixes so I can fly that approach. I'm going to let this video play. I'm going to narrate it a little bit, about 3 minutes before I have to go. So what this is, I kind of just combined all this stuff together. I was flying on our Redbird sim in the Austin office, and I wanted to simulate what would happen if I did have to make a diversion using all these ForeFlight tools. I'm flying along. I have my glide advisor displayed. I know if I have an engine out, I should, if everything is configured correctly, be able to get safely to anywhere within that ring. There's an airport right there within that ring. I'm sorry, I'm going to start this video over. Okay, I'm also along the bottom. You can see I have my dynamic instrument panel. I can make changes to that. So this may not actually finish before I run out of time. But all you're going to see is me flying along this route. I imagined like, oh crap, engine just went out, I have to divert. And what you're going to see is I'm going to tap on the airport there. I'm just going to reroute myself to that airport and then attempt to land. It was a simulator, but I just cut the power and then just tried to glide in. So if we have time to get to it, you'll see how wonky the landing is, but I got there. One of the things I included on here, if you've never messed with these are interactive. You can change how these appear. This one right here on the far left is nearest airport. I always fly with that one on. If you enable nearest airport, no matter where you are, we will tell you what the closest airport is. So this helps in an emergency, helps in a diversion. Maybe I didn't know that Foxtrot 30 was there. I could look down and immediately see Foxtrot 30 is 2 miles and I am south of it. So you can immediately start to make that turn. So again, that's what I'm doing. You can see me making my turn, trying to line up with Foxtrot 30. By this time in the simulator, I've cut the power, so I'm going to start losing altitude pretty quickly. I believe on this video, you're going to see a sync rate alert pop up at some point. And then as I approach the field, I'm going to trigger synthetic vision, so you get an idea of what the synthetic vision looks like. Synthetic vision is a really cool tool. There's my sync rate. It's a really cool tool that gives me like a 3D synthetic view of how I'm flying. And let's see, I've got 27 seconds before I run out of time. We'll see if I land this plane literally in that time. I don't remember if I did. There we go. There's my synthetic vision. I assure you I got the simulator down onto the runway at a safe speed. It looks very wonky in this view, partly because I was recording on my iPad, flying the simulator, and I think I may have been answering an email at the same time. So it's probably not the ideal way to conduct a diversion. But again, I assure you, I safely landed my Redbird simulator. So with that, I'm going to put up our team at ForeFlight email, if I have it here. There we go. And I'm going to leave this up as I wrap up. If you guys have any support issues you run into, please email us at team at ForeFlight. Our pilot support team are all pilots. We have people on frequency 24/7. They're very responsive, very experienced. Any issues you're having, let them know. While you're at the show, you're welcome to hit any of us up off to the side after I'm done. Join us at the booth. I want to thank you guys for sitting with me for an hour and 15 minutes. Enjoy flying with ForeFlight and enjoy the rest of Oshkosh. Thank you.